and welcome to Focus on Parliament. My name is Caroline Ayot. I'm your host for today. We will be looking at the human rights situation in Uganda in light of the claims of a peaceful election. Article 79(1) of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda mandates Parliament to make laws on any matter of peace, order, development, and good governance of the country. In today's discussion, we'll be looking at the role of Parliament in ensuring that human rights are observed in this country, especially during a crucial time like the electoral roadmap and the electoral process. In studio with me today, I have a panel of distinguished guests, and I'll start introducing them from my extreme left coming in. We have Ms. Esther Nakitende, who is a legal officer from the Women Pro Bono Initiative. Esther, welcome to Focus on Parliament.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Yes, we also have Mr. Agaba Muzoora, who is an aspiring member of Parliament under the ANT ticket for Kampala Central. Welcome to Focus on Parliament.
Thank you, Nancy, and our dear viewers. I look forward to a wonderful discussion.
Thank you very much. Then we also have Ms. Gloria Kamayangi, who is the founder of Kamayangi Gloria Foundation. Welcome to Focus on Parliament.
Thank you, Nancy, and good afternoon, listeners.
And lastly, we have Ms. Trassylene Ankunda, who is a lawyer. Tracy, welcome to Focus on Parliament.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for having me. I'm very excited, especially being the first time to be on this show, and I look forward to a very fruitful discussion.
Well, since it is your first time, let us have you break bread into this discussion, because we want to feel your energy on the show. So, Trassylene, in your opinion, what is the human rights situation in Uganda right now, barely 1 month to the 2026 general elections?
Thank you very much for that question. I think the state of human rights within Uganda generally, even before elections, is one that is still in a struggling state. In a struggling state that we do have the laws, you find you have very many entities. Each entity is looking at human rights. You have the Human Rights Commission, you have the Constitution itself that is very particular under Chapter 4, but you also equally, for this specific period of elections, you do have the Electoral Commission Act that also has a complementary role in terms of the protection of the human rights and other approaches within the election time. But it is well known to most of us that when it comes to appreciating what is always written down in the law vis-a-vis what the practice is, it is a different story. And because somehow there is an aspect of power over in perspective of who holds the power and who is the law made for. And this is something we've already talked about under jurisprudence, that while sometimes you might think the law changes the society might change the law. But then another perspective is that those who have made the law can actually use it to their benefit. And so it becomes, in a way, a tool that is powerless to those who are underprivileged, or a tool that becomes of discrimination in terms of who you are, what capacity you are in, or perhaps even what political party you do belong to. When you particularly, for example, look at, we've been having very many ongoing cases within tribunals and the Electoral Commission in terms of disqualifying some of the candidates that have already been nominated. You realize it again goes back to the aspect of power and also sometimes manipulation, and evidence might not be sufficient, but they'll play their cards right in terms of who can we actually favor in this game. And equally, the Electoral Commission Act is very clear in terms of, for example, voter bribery, for example, corruption, but this is not usually what we see being done. It is going to get worse as it even draws nearer to 2026. But we are already seeing this happening. And people do not understand that, or are not aware that bribery, for example, during elections, is not entirely the person who bribes. Even you who receives, you are actually supposed to be held liable. But in the state of economy where someone is not working, they are unemployed, they are looking at that 20,000 as maybe the next meal, it becomes a bit hard for them to even show up and say, no, I cannot take this because of the different situations that they are in. But also we've seen abductions now ongoing, and to juxtapose it with the aspect of the rule of law and independence of churches talking about politics, religion getting involved, but also different entities that are supposed to protect the citizens of Uganda, for example, the Uganda police, as well as the army. The army that is supposed to be a neutral party, also an army for the people. We often see it sometimes inclined to somehow represent a certain segment of people. So the state of human rights within Uganda is one that has progressively had very many people actually champion and talk about it, but the results are still very far for us to actually say, now this is where we are headed for, or this is where we want to be. But also to get it to the parliament is that it should be a wake-up call and a reminder that this is not particularly a role that we as citizens can do much about. But if there is a united force in terms of the legislation with implementation, then I do believe that we can get it much better.
Thank you very much, Trassylene. Gloria, allow me skip you. Let's go to the new people. Yes, please. So, Mr. Agaba, you are on the campaign trail, and so yes. What is your perspective of the human rights situation on the campaign trail right now?
Thank you so much, Nancy. First and foremost, we are in an election period, and indeed I'm on campaign trail. But there are two, actually we are the major elections, the major campaign trails going on. We have presidency, we have parliamentary level, and they have district chairpersons, as well as the councillors, of course. But the trails are different. If you are to presidential level, you have different circumstances from those ones at parliamentary and local level. Why is that so? At presidential level, we have an incumbent government, and then we have opposition players who are challenging the incumbent government. So it's not like us who are challenging individuals. So when it comes to the meeting of rights and challenges, they are definitely as high as the stakes are. For that level. And so when it comes to the human rights at that level, we have seen presidential candidates, the main challenger actually for the incumbent government, who happens to be Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi. We have seen him facing different circumstances from the incumbent candidate, Yoweri Museveni, as well as the not so impactful presidential candidates. So when it comes to that level of competition in Uganda in general, because now this is our 7th presidential elections in our recent history, the main rivals to the incumbent have privileges. They don't have rights, they have privileges. Because rights are not given and they cannot be withdrawn. But privileges are given and they can be what? Withdrawn. We have seen it, for example, when it comes to access to voters. Whereas the Elections Act does not provide you access to voters and does not provide you how. But the police and security forces have come up to restrict the access to certain voters by the main opposition candidate. That is to say, for example, that you have areas where you can do your rally, you have certain routes which you must take, and majorly, especially in the city, and the towns, those people are not allowed to see their candidate, because the candidate can choose to, for example, do door to door. When you are given a timetable to go to a district, the issue of restricting you to holding a rally somewhere where not everybody can access you turns they would be right into a privilege. Also, we have seen that the law does not prevent people from moving around with their candidate. But we saw recently in Mbarara, when Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi was in Mbarara, his supporters were arrested. And whereas, of course, the police technically puts some charges, but the chorus in the security apparatus and those in the incumbent government was that those people were following their candidate. But we have also seen the teams of President Museveni. I have friends who have not slept home since 2 months ago. Of course, the prominent ones, you have seen the Anita Mongs, all members of the executive, the big shots of NRM. Are they different from the border riders of Kyagulanyi? Does the law provide for abana and ebyana children and bastards? So, in a nutshell, at presidential level, there are privileges and rights. If you are in government, your rights are guaranteed. If you are in opposition, your rights are turned into privileges, and they can be guaranteed or otherwise. This time around, at lower level, I think we have had one of the most peaceful elections. Also, I think there is civility that has come with repeating elections, because people in the past carried a lot of emotions when it came to elections. And now, either they carry their stomachs expecting something to eat from the candidates, and they will come all the candidates everywhere. We have not seen where we are being chased in the constituency, not just mine. And so at lower level, I think there is a little bit of balance.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Gloria, to give us your perspective, what is the state of human rights for the normal Ugandan, for the ordinary Ugandan, well, especially with the coming of the 2026 elections?
Of course, all rights are guaranteed to Ugandans, save for some aspects where some certain situations guarantee that your rights have to either be withdrawn or restricted. But we have seen, like as it is in Article 1 of the Constitution, that power belongs to the people, and it's this power that gives us the rights to choose our leaders, to choose the leaders of our choice. And in that matter, we have seen we have different political players, both at the presidential level and the parliamentary level. At the presidential level, we have the main character, who is the incumbent president, against other political players from other political parties. And what has been observed generally is that we have been having somehow smooth and peaceful campaign, save for a few glitches that have occurred. That one we cannot say that it is 100% peaceful. We have seen some curtailment of some political activities that have taken place, but generally we are seeing it as a peaceful one and a silent one, like what Chairman Norbert Mao one time described it. And every person, every Ugandan, every citizen of voting age has a right to choose the person of his or her choice. These are rights that cannot be denied. These are rights that cannot be withdrawn. Each constituency has the candidates from which the voters can choose. We have seen the other rights of the women, the youth, the elderly. So these are some things that have been given to people of different categories. So there are some areas where people have not been able to participate or do some other things freely because of the restrictions. We have seen, for instance, today there is a campaign going on within Kampala in Rubaga. This campaign, because it's a town, they cannot let them walk and drive and ride freely because security has to come in to protect people and its property. So these are some of the restrictions that we have seen. Although there is that also force, you know, when you are supporting someone, like when I was still young and I would get involved in this politics, you can't even listen to something. There is that urge that forces you to keep pushing for something. But at the moment you understand that something is very wrong or something is right, you have to choose between what is right and it is okay with the society. We have seen the society, our communities are getting heated up with the campaign as we move towards the closer of the campaign. We are almost coming to January, and January 15th is the final day for voting. And after that, we shall not see any chaos. For the LC5 and the other ones, those ones they will have their own people.
Everyone is wondering if you're sure there will be no chaos after that.
Not really, not really.
Yes.
Yeah, but the perspective of human rights, we have seen, like I said, there are some violations here and there by both the security agencies and also the voters, the supporters. And when there is a standoff, then we see the activists saying, your government is doing this, government is curtailing this. The army is involving itself in the politics, blah, blah, blah. So, but as the security, yeah, it is. It is. It is involving itself in it. Because, first of all, by virtue of its mandate, the police and the army, they have to come in and protect the citizens where it is due. And you cannot do away with it. If they let everyone goes on the run and does everything, you know there is a problem.
We'll come back to that conversation. let's wind up on the campaign trail and the human rights situation, but we will revisit that.
That's like I was saying, the rights of citizens, the rights of candidates, the rights of everyone during this campaign trail has not been so much interfered with. At least there is some bit of liberty, some bit of freedom, some bit of free choice, especially among us, the voters. Of course, when you look at the presidential campaign, Chagulanyi, Muntu, Nandala, all these ones are competing with the presidential candidate who is also a sitting president. And you cannot delineate these two, a sitting president and a candidate. If it was like in other countries, maybe in the US, where a sitting president, you first step aside and you go into an election as a candidate. But here, we have to accept that this is our constitution, and we must accept and move the way we are moving, and that's it.
Thank you, Gloria. So, Esther, I want to invite you to talk about the same, but maybe you put a focus on the human rights situation, especially for women. We've had those isolated incidents of chaos. How are they affecting the woman on the ground, the woman voter?
I think I should start by saying that things have been falling apart for some time. If you remember the 2020 November killing that claimed over 53 Ugandans, 2023, the UN human rights offices were closed by government in Uganda. Here we are, 2025. We have over 9 male candidates for the presidential seat, but none is a lady.
Yeah.
So what is the status of human rights in the
It's a
perspective of women? That is not the choice. They disguise it as women did not meet the required requirements. But is it indeed true?
Yes.
That is not the truth. So in a women's perspective and how the violence has greatly affected women, I'll give a very key example. I don't know if we all remember. A lady that was called Sophia Kisache, 25-year-old, who lost her life during the November killing. Food vendor, has no business with Kyagulanyi or Museveni, but she was shot, died. So, as women, when you ask us the status of human rights during this time, we cannot hesitate but say we are dying and we are losing it at all levels. We have 34% of the 557 members of parliament being women, but still women are not protected. So the human rights status during this time of election is one that greatly affects the women economically, politically. The day a woman chooses to stand, the first thing they will ask, are you married? How perfect is your body shape? All that is a violation to a woman. Yet the Constitution, under Article 32, gives us the mandate, the right to participate fully in electoral processes
Even though
as
you're
women.
not married.
Even if I am not married, even if I am not properly shaped as they would desire. Talk about the economic rights in the general perspective, not only affecting women. How do you expect people to vote without getting bribes if they cannot afford a Panadol of 500? So the day a candidate will show up in my home, they have to give me something. After all, they will not come back after giving them the vote. So the truth is that in a women's perspective, we have been forgotten, and the status of human rights in Uganda is one that is really concerning. No wonder the UN offices were just, no one can check the actions of the government.
Well, thank you very much, Esther. And now I'm going to bring the conversation right into the theory of peaceful elections. All right, all of our panelists have agreed that compared to 2021, there is relative peace. And right now, on the headlines, even today, we are talking about a missing clergyman from Masaka who has disappeared. Like, the disappearances are once again making it into headlines, and all of them point to, you know, if I could just read out in violent subversive activities. Usually these people are accused of violent subversive activities against the state. I do not know exactly what that means, especially when you put it to context. So I am going to ask, what are the true indicators of peaceful polls? Because many people have dismissed the idea that these are peaceful elections because they say there are other things taking place on the ground. there are disappearances of citizens of this country, arbitrary arrests, but in addition to that, there is also extreme violence when it occurs. It's like violence, the violence captured on camera needs a cautionary warning before you actually view it. So if I should come to you, Trassylene, what are the true indicators of peace in any true electoral process?
I would love to start with a point that you always highlight, that they are called free and fair elections, not excellent elections. And yes, and maybe if we had called them peaceful elections, but again, peace has been defined to mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
That while someone will say peace is absence of war, another will say, no, look, if I cannot speak and I am heard, then it is not peaceful. And of course, I think this year we've had very many campaigns ongoing in regards to promoting peace. Even the NIMD has been doing around Let's Talk Peace campaign, and other entities that are fronting to ensure that we do have peaceful elections. When you even get to peace in terms of physical peace, but also peace in terms of how it does affect the emotional bit of it for Ugandans. And we well know we've just finished the 16 days of activism where we're looking at saying no to or stopping digital violence. Digital violence now is, in election period, we are having campaigns online. And I think one of the members, Honorable Rosia, that keeps emphasizing, I am not coming to your homes, I am just going to stay at home and use my phone. So we have violations, or we have peace that comes within the concept of the online perspective. But we also do have peace that comes with, if I leave home, go on a campaign trail, will I come back safely? But also, you might be on your own journey and somehow you get affected when you're not even on the campaign trail. Equally, when you look at the UN Security Council resolution in regards to peace, where they're saying, let us have youth be part of decision making, but also let us have women within the 2000 resolution, where they are looking at how do we bring women to peaceful aspects, especially even within elections. Peace is really broad and has meant different things to different people. And me, I think if we really had a specific kind of definition or approach to say this is what really amounts to peace, I feel like we could start right there. Because if an individual is going to tell you that when 3 or 4 people die, then it is peace, or it is fair, another one will tell you that if there are 100 people dying, then that is getting gross. But you're talking about a right to life, and we have seen a young person, we've seen people die. We've had one in Uganda that was killed. So as long as people do not take or identify peace to be one that is independent of what political party you belong to, one that is independent of what religion you belong to, because it is a universal perspective that if it is not peace, or if it is a violation, it will not just affect you. It will affect you physically, emotionally, psychologically, financially even. That if you're looking at maybe campaign trails, for example in Bushenyi, where I come from, and you're saying this is a member of parliament is running and they do have the money. Now, if they do have the money, one's perspective would be, voters are more likely to run for the one that has the chigati. And the one that has the chigati, you have to keep getting the chigati on board because people want to have that. But also on the other opponent side, the candidate, the opponent that is running with that same person that has the chigati, they are also having some inhuman treatment, because one is going to, for example, get psychologically tortured. How do I get the money? I do not have this money. And also voters will always throw trash at you. So it is not in an operative that it is just this candidate that does have the money where the ground is a bit leveled, but it also does affect the other candidates that do not have that money in terms of the violation that comes along. But also specifically in context of peace in Uganda and elections, I think there is quite a draw in terms of what the role of, for example, the police should be. The other day I was having a conversation with a certain Afande called WPI, and he was saying that while we are talking about human rights, we tend to forget human rights of the police officers. that they are also human beings, human beings whose rights should actually be protected. That because if you expect an individual or a voter or someone on a campaign rally to throw a stone at a police officer and also just keep looking, our rights are also being violated. So it is in concept that regardless of what job you do, regardless of what religion you subscribe to, regardless of whether you're NRM, you're FDC, you're NUP, you're ANT, what is the general meaning of what you think a peaceful Uganda should be, and particularly peaceful elections? This is one where I say that if, for example, we are having all that is clearly stipulated within the Electoral Commission Act, very well actually amplified or implemented, without, for example, where we see presiding officers falling towards a certain candidate, you'll find these are presiding officers, but most of them have actually either been put into place or the candidate has actually paid some money for his members to be presiding officers or even officers and all that is usually run in the election. Now that means that is the start of violence, because the other political party is going to feel, or the other candidate is going to feel, they are not represented. They are already feeling this is not actually free and fair. And so what happens when they return home, they are going to look for a certain clique of young people whom they will fund 20,000. The young person has not had supper, and they are looking at this 20,000 as something to sustain their lives for the next hours, and they'll be willing. Now, it is coming from the fact that a certain law is put in place in terms of neutrality and the role that the EC has to play, and it is not appreciated. And because it is not appreciated, another candidate is going to say, now look, this is a comeback I can make. And that comeback becomes using, again, other young people to be part of violence, but also to manipulate the system. Now, while you think you who has an advantage to the system, you think you're doing well, but in a way you're also instituting violence from the other side of the party. And so, as I conclude on this, is that to me, I would think this would mean, can everyone's voice be heard? Can what is stipulated in the Electoral Commissions Act, in the Parliamentary Elections Act, in the Presidential Elections Act, in the Local Government Act, in regards to who is mandated to do what role and when, can it be appreciated? But also awareness, civic engagement, the global indicator on peace participation for young people puts a score at 32%, and 32% is really less percent in terms of civic engagement, where we have 58% being part of participation within the election period. So even people are not aware of some of the legalities that actually do come, especially in regards to the mandate that the Electoral Commission has. And if, for example, you cannot, if one is not aware that you, for example, have to have a recount, you have a mandatory recount, all those are things that are not alive to the public. That, for example, if you're on this polling station and your votes are maybe 50 or less in number from the other candidate, that you actually can apply and get a recount on that polling station. They are not aware. And also they do not know that maybe this, I have to appeal to maybe to the chief magistrate, to the magistrate court in regards to if the counting is either mandatory or within this specific period, or when do I actually go to the High Court. And so, because even people feel they don't trust the legal processes, because it will also again require money. And I have had issues where people are saying that sometimes the Electoral Commission would actually love it maybe if cases are, if you bring out cases and then they lose the cases, then perhaps they are going to get more funding because there will either be a by-election where they can actually benefit. And so it becomes a whole chaos in regards to the struggle for peace. But I think if the laws that are already in place actually appreciated, if we can put into other mechanisms that even those ones who are at home, they can actually be able to have, to vote, to make the vote for their candidates. Because if our rights to Article 59 in regards to your right to vote are not appreciated, then it becomes, when you even get into power, someone is going to tell you, I did not vote that person. And so if you did not vote, your accountability now lowers. You don't hold the person accountable. But also, what laws work for who? The laws seem to only work for candidates, but people forget that even when you've put those people in power, you have some protection within the law that you can use to bring them, as long as they do not actually work or bring to what you expect from them. So lastly, I think peace does not exist in isolation. Peace should be a concern of every individual, whether woman, whether young person, whether police, whether religious leaders, because the consequences will not be selective on who actually gets to pick a share.
Thank you very much, Trassylene. And you've raised a good issue on legitimacy of the people that we put in power. So I'm going to go to you, Gloria. And here we're going to talk about Parliament. This is focused on Parliament. We cannot do without talking on Parliament. And we want to talk about the mandate of Parliament in protecting human rights. But also, why is the mandate not being enforced, especially against a known perpetrator like the military officers of this country?
Thank you once again. And the Parliament is the only institution that is mandated to enact laws for the good governance of this country. And a lot of laws have been enacted to protect Ugandans in all aspects. We have seen, for instance, the Public Order Management Act that regulates gatherings of whichever kinds of people, whether in elections or even without elections. We have seen other, I may not mention all, but there are several laws that have been enacted that touch human rights concerns. We have seen during this campaign, Electoral Commission is supposed to oversee this campaign and elections. But what have we seen? We have seen many people are pulling down other candidates' posters, and we have not seen Electoral Commission coming out to caution these people. We have not seen arrests being carried out over such people. We have seen the abuses being uttered on some candidates' supporters, the hooligans, what? These kinds of abuses, they belittle the candidates, or candidates' supporters, they belittle also the candidates. The use of money during the campaign is not allowed. But the candidates keep using that money. And the law says whether it is the candidate that is giving this money or the agent, the law catches up with them. But I've not seen. I hear candidates, I've seen also in some areas where candidates are saying, you know, our MP has appreciated your support, thank you for coming, and he has already gone, now here is 1 million for your bottle of soda. And the voters clap, and it's not even talked about. And you know why it is not talked about? When someone raises it, then the voters will not vote the other person who has raised it, because they will be seen, they will see this person as a saboteur of their thing, their bread for that day. But Parliament is the only hope where we all look at as an august house, a honorable house, where members of the public are focusing their eyes to or on. So, but when Parliament goes against what is supposed to be done, then an anarchy can be created. So my appeal to the public is to ensure that we hold these people accountable. We are the ones who vote these people. They are supposed to make laws for the good governance of this country. But when they don't, then it's us, the voters, who can hold them accountable. We want a Uganda, we want a peaceful society, but a peaceful society cannot exist where there is no justice. Justice must prevail, and this justice must be given to all Ugandans equally.
Thank you very much, Gloria. We have come to the end of the first segment of our session on Focus on Parliament. Please join us after the short break. Thank you.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
In a press statement issued on December 14th by the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs through its Department of Defense Public Information, the UPDF, admitted that they had Father Sekabira in their custody. Earlier this year as well, the police also admitted that they had abducted, or they had in their custody, as admitted by the Chief of Defense Forces, an NUP public figure who was allegedly abducted. But also at the beginning of this, at the end of last year, Colonel Kizza Besigye was also taken from Kenya, and the UPDF admitted that this person was in their custody. Now, we would like to talk about the role of the army, especially when it comes to overseeing issues, political issues. Most of the times, the people who are abducted are known to be against the state. So, Mr. Agaba, I want to invite you to talk about security forces. What is their constitutional mandate, and how can they be held accountable in the Ugandan context today? How can we check the army?
Thank you very much, Nancy. We need to understand the background of the current government if you have to understand the role of the security forces in the Ugandan context. So this is a government which came out of a rebel outfit, a military outfit, and we have since not graduated from it. So the military especially, not even the police, the military especially, has been placed at a high level of decision making and even implementing the government, especially when it comes to the stability of the state, the running of government in general. So the military has been placed high there. And so it is very difficult to divorce it from the daily life of citizens. Whereas the UPDF Act stipulates that the role of the UPDF is to guard Ugandan borders. That's what the sovereignty, the territorial sovereignty of the state. And what actually makes us wonder what they are doing inside in the daily lives of the people. The other historical position makes them get involved everywhere. So it is not necessarily by constitutional role that they get involved in daily lives, especially of politicians. It is by historical role. But that's why you see when they pick you, they say you are involved in subversive activities. Now, subversive activities are activities against the security of the state. Now, that's where they come in, because they are there to protect the sovereignty of the what? Of the state. So that's the loophole they normally use to come in. But what is interesting, though, is since Besigye in 2005, I think was put on charges of, I think it was after the 2006 elections, when he was put on charges of PRA, People's, I think Redemption Army, something like that. And we know that even his brother Katabazi died when he was in detention over the same charges. We have not seen successful prosecution of all those people who have been branded as such. We saw Sam Mugumya, who recently also was re-abducted again, and nobody has since owned up. Was abducted, I think, in August 26 August. It's now coming to 4 months. He also disappeared from Uganda, surfaced in Congo, in detention. He spent there, I think, about 8 years. Came back to Uganda, and he has hardly sat down, and he was also picked. So, to me, the UPDF is more weaponized because of its kind of sovereignty, because it has kind of an autonomy from the kind of work they are doing, from scrutiny. And that's why they don't use the police, because the police is there to enforce law, and they have a code of conduct that we know, blah, blah, blah. And so they have a lot of scrutiny. But the security, the army can hold you incommunicado without even trying you, even after they can release you, without trying you. And so that one becomes a big weapon available for the state to use against civilians who are not compliant to the kind of the road where you are supposed to keep. If you buy if you buy a little bit from the road where they want you to be, of talking good about the government, following the government, blah, 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 they have someone to beat you back into the main line. When it comes to the real intention of the actions, actually it is not about the father who disappeared, it's not about Sam Mugumya, it's not about Chibarama, which up to now has never been seen. These ones, they are making them examples. When I used to work somewhere and we have a tough post, we used to intimidate people. I'll make you an example of others. They would terminate you, show others example of you. So they are used as examples that if you are coming against the regime, this is what you are likely to do, what you are likely to face. And so it is characteristic of a state that does not want fair, the regime that does not want fair competition in running the affairs of the what? Of the state. And that is historical on the part of our leader today. Because he is coming to power. We don't have a history where he had contested any seat and gone through a competition in order to go to any office that he held. Before the very elections he is organizing himself. So it means that He has a history of fearing competition. And he also has a historical method of handling competition, which is violence. Because we know that I have not yet really answered, in spite of the books I've read, why Samuel Gerere in 1981 was comfortable. He was the second position with 46. I saw the statistics, 48, 46, and he was the second position. He was comfortable in sharing government with Dr. Bote. But then the few felt that they needed violence, okay? Because they told us they were 27. So it was 27 people in the whole of Uganda who believed in overthrowing the government of Bote using the gun. Dr. Samuel Gerere, he was willing to wait until another 5 years he tries again. And maybe during that process he thought that he would have built enough laws to prevent further raging. But you see, there is a gentleman who had his own way of handling competition, of beating competition, of handling disagreement, and don't think that that one has since gone away. And if he's the commander-in-chief of the forces in Uganda, don't expect anything less.
Wow. Do we have no hope?
We cannot say that we have no hope. The historical life of a human being is that you must keep fighting for things to change. That's why all these people, the kind of Dr. Besigye's, and the successors, even Samuel Gerere was the predecessor of Dr. Besigye, they are fighting for that day. And indeed, as the day follows the sun, we shall reach there.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Agaba. Now, you see, we have discussed all of these things and all of the oversights, the past oversights that have not been handled well. So now, Esther, I will again bring you back to Parliament. So how would you rate the performance of the 11th Parliament, especially when it comes to protecting human rights in this country?
I would start with a very, very important highlight in terms of human rights and jurisdiction powers of court. So in March this year, the Supreme Court pronounced itself on trying civilians in military courts. Clearly stated that was unconstitutional and should not be done. What did Parliament do? Parliament passed a law, the amendment, that clearly states and suggests that Ugandan citizens should be tried in the military court. That is the 11th Parliament for us. So if I am to rate the 11th Parliament in far as protecting human rights, we all see the picture. Because why? Even Article 98 of the Constitution clearly states that Parliament cannot pass a law against the decision of a court. And the whole Supreme Court of Uganda, with 7 judges, said, no, you should not try civilians in military court. Parliament said, no, we shall try them. Gloria just called Parliament our last hope.
So in other words, they overthrew Article 1.
Power
does not belong to the people, now power belongs to the Parliament.
Allow her to finish, then I will give you opportunity. Yes.
No, just I wanted to interject somehow. But isn't it also a betrayal or some inactiveness on the side of the judiciary?
No.
What can judiciary do?
The judiciary did its part. Pronounced itself. Said no, you cannot try civilian in the military courts. The bill was presented before our dear 557 members of Parliament. What did they say? Go away with your decision. We shall try them. Who are we to blame?
they don't have coercive means, in other words.
Yes.
There are means
They
of
don't have an army behind
means
them.
of coercion.
So that is
Reserved
not
for-
the only bill that undermines human rights that has been passed
That
by the
is also
parliament.
a contempt of judiciary.
I guess it should be. It's a violation of the constitution because Article 98 clearly says parliament never pass a law against a decision of a court. We have very many other bills. We have, in the women's context, we have the marriage bill that has been on bench for years. Till today, the 11th parliament is still silent on the same. One that is aimed at protecting the women's right. We have the sexual offences bill that creates offences like marital rape, where your husband forces you to have sex, that is marital rape. But what has the 11th parliament done? Shelved it until today. We have bills
The
like
minimum wage.
the minimum wage bill. We have bills like the legal aid bill, where Ugandans will be free to get legal aid. Until today, the same has been shelved. So when it comes to protecting human rights, the 11th parliament has dearly failed and betrayed
Yeah,
us.
I have, let me play devil's advocate a little bit, yes? So, Parliament also has a mandate to check and hold other people accountable, especially by summoning them to pronounce themselves on certain things. So, this very year, the Parliament summoned the Chief of Defence Forces to explain himself, because under Article 83, they have this power and they can
Certainly.
summon. So, would you still say that is Parliament's, since it has no coercive means to actually bring the CDF to book, or what would you have to say about that?
What I would have to say, so if Parliament went ahead and summoned the CDF, did it stop at that? Did they take any measures to see that this person actually appears? Or when he went back on X and said, I will not appear in your useless parliament. They all sat
What
back and
what
kept
could
quiet.
they have done?
Even the speaker apologized and wondered how did the committee summon
no.
the CDF.
The third person in this country, the speaker, apologized for that action.
So are you saying parliament is under capture?
Of course. Certainly it is.
Someone said that Parliament could have withheld the budget for the UPDF. Is that a thing that they could do?
Yes, that is a thing that they could do. Under the checks and balances, they have the mandate.
At least they do it for other sectors and for other agencies. And remember, they have powers of the what? Of the Supreme Court. They can issue warrant of arrest, and the office of the CDF is not immune from arrest and forceful appearance.
Well, I feel like we're strongly coming to the end of this show, and I don't want to. Did you have something to add, Esther? Yes, and since we're coming to the end of this show, we'll start with you, Esther, to actually give your parting shots and what your hopes are for the 2026 elections and for next year, really. What are your hopes for this country, especially in terms of peace and security for the people of this country?
Thank you very much, Nancy, and our dear viewers for keeping with us until now. In terms of peace, Trassylene was talking about peace and what peace means to different people. I remembered clearly Uganda is a multi-party system in terms of elections and politics. So the Constitution gives us a right to have a number of parties. But the day you join a particular party, someone will tell you, write your will. And you join another, and they say kati agenda zimba, because in the other you're going to get money, and the other you're losing a life.
Yeah.
So when it comes to peace and at this time of elections, where you cannot freely choose what you want because it's an exchange of life, it is an exchange of a family member, it is a thing that would put your own children in a dilemma. So my hope as we go into the 2026 general election is, one, for women. Give us a clear platform to participate, where you will respect our autonomy as women. And peace should not mean absence of war. Because what do you mean we have peace when a full MP, Mike Mukula, said he had to buy a vote in dollars? What becomes of me, a 24-year-old who has never seen a dollar? Yet you have to buy votes in
Wait
dollar.
for your time.
You have to work hard.
Actually motivating you to work hard.
So with the elections that are highly commercialized, my appeal to the Electoral Commission, I don't know how best they can curb the commercialization of election, but that should stop. I think with that, then we can have full participation of women, men, and the youth.
Thank you very much, Esther, for joining us on this edition of Focus on Parliament. We're very happy to have got your insights. And now to move to your next neighbor, Mr. Agaba, what are your aspirations for the 2026 election?
Thank you very much, Nancy, and the viewers of Focus on Parliament. I've been glad to be hosted here, and especially to chat views about something I'm in. I'm not only into, but I'm also in.
Yeah.
When it comes to elections, we had hoped at the beginning that these elections were going to be peaceful and managed according to the laws, but we were surprised in starting late November when we got the twist. So it brought back our nightmare memories that we are fearing. We are now fearing that especially the voting day is going to be the usual business or even worse. And so my prayer is for a change of heart on those who are governing elections in the country. There are many ways in which they can get the results they want, while at the same time leaving citizens to have peace, especially with neighbors and whatever. Why am I saying that? To me, the idea of why we had peace, especially peaceful campaigns at the beginning, was because President Museveni must have calculated and said, you know what, there are now a lot of young people. If we start using force against them, we are inciting their resentment against the government. And eventually, either during elections or post-elections, we must have riots against the government. So how about we do a peaceful campaign? But of course, he has a lot of young people who are very scientific, and I've seen it. The stages, the approach to elections, to getting the results they want, has been changing over the years. Because in the 2016 and earlier, some of it was ballot stuffing, ticking for people who are not there, blah, blah, and so you can get the numbers. But 2021, we moved to another level, which was the opaque tallying of results. They stopped tallying of results at the district because it was not easy maybe to get declaration forms at polling stations, but it would have been easier to get declaration forms at the district. So in order to have the results they want, they created an opaque system where even the districts could not release presidential elections. And so they could create a system where only they can declare the results according to them. No one else had the privilege of knowing what came from the districts. So, I mean, with invention of that, why beat up people? You leave them to campaign, leave them to vote, and you know how to get the result. And I think this time we are going to do that. We had moved to a different level because now, for example, these biometric machines, I know for sure they are going to differentiate many people. You can keep that for me, and for us, we are going to review that one. They are going to differentiate many people. And we are going to see the repetition of last time in Wakiso and Kampala. Electoral materials arrived past midday. When in Kisoro, in border with Rwanda, at 6, polling agents were at polling stations with the electoral materials waiting to do what? Waiting for voters to vote. So you can see the manipulations. And so I think that even now, the biometric machines are going to be used to differentiate people. And I mean, the Electoral Commission has the chance to prove me wrong. And this is what the whole of us want in the country, that we should have a peaceful election. Whatever the people who want their result, they can get the result the way they want. But while our lives are okay, we are okay with our neighbors. And even this, like in our when last time I voted from my home village, but we had the chairperson LOC3 moving around with people in military uniform, exchanging ballot boxes. They would take this one, they put another. We don't know what they were actually exchanging.
In a minute.
So that could have left that gentleman lives in danger, because for him, he stays in the population. So I'd like post-election, all of us to be as peaceful neighbors as we were before the polling of the election, before voting. And so it is my prayer to those old people who are managing the elections to work and make sure that we have an election which is peaceful. We, the citizens, need it. You can have the numbers that you want, but as long as we remain with our lungs intact, our legs intact, our neighbors to interact with, that should be good enough for us.
Thank you, Mr. Agaba. Gloria, give us your parting shots and your hopes.
Thank you. As we move towards the election time in January 15, I want to appeal to Electoral Commission that is responsible for managing elections in this country to be as effective and efficient as much as possible, such that we do not have excuses of those the voters that the voting materials arrived late, I was defranchised, I was beaten up. So if, like, for example, the materials I saw in Ntungamo, the ballot boxes are already there. We already have ballot boxes in Ntungamo. And I guess that's what is happening in other districts. So by the time we reach the polling week, all districts would have received the materials required. In Uganda here, that's where the problem always comes in, where the materials arrive late. Yet actually, Electoral Commission is just a few meters in the central here. So we don't want this excuse of taking us to court. Someone, we would have won because you did ABCD. I would have won because your soldiers came and beat up all our supporters. Would have won because, but we did not receive declaration forms from different areas. And also the candidates, the presidential candidates, make sure you have your agents, you have your coordinators of your campaigns, so that after voting, you are able to receive the declaration forms in time, and you have your private tally centers, such that you can now compare notes with the general tally center, where I expect you will also have other people, your agents in the national tally center. That's when we shall have a bit a free and fair election. And also the people, the voters, let's go and vote. Vote in large numbers. We have tendencies of saying, my candidate has already gone, has already won. Even if I don't go, I know my candidate has already won. When actually, at the end of the day, things will turn different. Especially our village people. Where I come from, where we have cattle keepers, for them, voting is like, they can even vote for me. That thing should not come now, because things have changed. And the supporters of either side, let's not make this one a war zone. Let's make it peaceful, let's be friends. Tomorrow you win or I win, Uganda will keep going. Uganda is for us. It should remain peaceful even after elections. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gloria. And lastly, Trassylene.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's been good joining in this conversation again for my very first time. And I want to have parting shots in regards to a call to action that every person out there should be vigilant. And peace should not just be talked about towards the elections, but we need to have even post-election analysis in terms of how to keep this going. And I would call, for example, if you are at elections or at a polling station and you see any form of violation of a right, have evidence. Use your phone, record something, because the burden of proof, especially in terms of proving these election offenses, is usually a bit high. And where you have no evidence, it is worse. Because you will not prove that it actually happened. And I think that's a challenge that we equally have with the law, that much as you saw this one give money, you must have evidence that actually this money was intended for this purpose, and then we never get justice. But my call is ensure you're vigilant, stay alert, go and vote. We cannot emphasize that any further, and be your brother's keeper. Abductions are real. People will carry you in a car, especially the old people, when they know you're not supporting them. You think they are taking you to the polling station, but before you know it, you will not vote. You will return in the night. Yes, you will return in the night. You will return in the night. So be vigilant. Make sure you follow up to know who has taken who. Follow up those things, really. You don't want to have family members missing after the elections. And of course, we do hope and pray for a peaceful election. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So to reiterate our childhood warnings, don't talk to strangers.
They will find you, whether you talk to them or not.
We have unfortunately come to the end of this discussion, and of course I would like to thank each of my panelists for coming in, for taking your time to contribute to this important discussion. I would also like to thank our behind the scenes crew, the tech team, for making this possible, but also our viewers, of course, for keeping it Civic Space TV. Of course, our parting shots and our hopes from the team at Focus on Parliament and Civic Space TV, that is Isaac Kwagala and the rest, is that we hope for equal application of the law for all persons. We also hope for non-violence during these elections. We hope for credible, transparent, free and fair elections. My name is Caroline Ayot. This has been Focus on Parliament.